on passing us by. We're looking to others and living a lie. Why even bother all this effort just to get by? We're placing the pieces, we're playing the game. We watch as it ceases, looking back at what we became. No one is special, we're all just the same. Taking before we receive. The future we're making is in the fabric we weave. Don't let no one tell you what you should believe. There's a limit to what you can achieve. There's a line in the sand that you cannot cross to quench your desire. Don't be fooled by your dreams. There's no way that you will get any higher. You'll get fired, so it's better to extinguish your fire. And whoever tells you to go follow your dream is a liar.
Good afternoon, everybody. How is everybody doing, man? We're so glad to be back on another episode of Down in the Valley, part of the BGN, the Beautiful Game Network, and of course, this episode brought to you by Natural Beauty Spa. And there goes our, I guess you can say, required stuff to say. So, Jacob is back this week. I know it was last week's episode was kind of last minute, but he is back this week. We're so happy for him to be back on the show, honestly. And I mean, there really is a lot to talk about today because we've got last weekend's Toros Fest to talk about, where the RGVFC played the Houston Dynamo. Mm-hmm. And obviously, because due to that, there were a couple of news. En vivo, of course. Jorge, thank you for tuning in today. And of course, we've got news that came in, I think, a couple of days after that match regarding some of our players joining the Dynamo first team. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And we've also got, I believe today, if I'm not mistaken, RGVFC was going to be having a match against, I think, UTRGV as well, right? Once again?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and Ray should be there at the, I think they're playing at UTRGV Complex, but he will be live tweeting everything that happens in that match. So be sure to follow Ray on Twitter at SOTX Athletics with an X at the end, not CS. So go ahead and follow him while you're listening to us, so you can get pretty much up live information about what's happening in that friendly against UTRGV. So, Jacob, welcome back, man. How's life been treating you?
Life has been treating me pretty well, especially in the past 24 hours, so I'm happy about that and looking forward to talk some soccer. It is also the evening, Edson, just FYI.
My brain has been all over the place this week thanks to NADA, but that's something that I'm not going to bore you all about. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. So, last Saturday, RGVFC versus Houston Dynamo, a free and open to the public preseason friendly between both members of the organization. And I guess you could say at the end, the final score was something that I guess many people expected. 5-0 loss at the end. But if you look at it through a period by period basis, it was kind of remarkable how well RGVFC kind of hung on against an MLS team. Sure, both are in preseason mode, but you also have to remember that the Dynamo began a week or 2 weeks earlier than RGVFC. Because I know some of we had a couple of Toros practicing with the Dynamo first team, but most of them were, especially the trialists and others, did not start preseason until a week later. So, and then also, most those players, for example, Isidro Martinez, Nico Lemoyne, Andrew Samuels, they suited up with the Houston Dynamo, not with RGVFC. So it was pretty interesting match to see. And Jacob, what were your thoughts going into this match?
Thoughts going into this match was, well, what am I going to see? Because of course, you and I both knew for sure only. What was it about? We had 3 players coming back and the rest were new, plus a new coaching staff except for Gerson Echeverry. So it was a lot of a lot of different players out there, different looks. And both from Houston Dynamo's perspective and also RGVFC's, we had Kyle Adams, I believe, playing for both sides too. So that was going to be interesting. And of course, we always know you're going to have the starters out in the first period. So it was really just looking at that first period to comparing a little bit longer to see who and what the sideline or our subs were really going to represent, especially when coming into later in that season. So of course it's still the beginning, but you want to get something, well, not really some things answered, but just make sure that this team can be ready for March 8th.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's still a long way to go till March 8th. In the aspect, not necessarily the time aspect, but as far as the performance aspect of this team. And we'll get to that in a little bit. I do want to say hi to everybody that's in the chat right now. Obviously, with Cisco and Jorge. Thank you for tuning in right now, guys. Just to let you all know that the phone lines are open. The phone lines are open tonight. So if you guys want to if you guys were at the Dynamo versus RGVFC match at HEB Park, and you have some thoughts on the event, the match, some of the players, some of your observations of this match, you're more than welcome to call in the show, and we'll put you in live on the stream, so you can give us your opinion on this team as it's building up towards the 2020 season. So. Sly Rooster says, howdy y'all, or should I say meowdy? That's a good one, man. So in this match, we had a couple of trialists starting out for RGVFC, more notably the keeper. But based on the formation, to me it seemed like Coach Echeverry is trying to go with Tab Ramos's 4-3-3 formation. Mm-hmm. With you had Luca Purpa, you had Tiberson out on the right wing, and then Kevin Rodriguez on the left wing. But they would interchange. I don't know if you noticed, but Tiberson and Tiberson and Kevin would switch sides, frequently throughout the match. I thought that was very, very interesting. And then you've had Greg McLaughlin up on top. In the middle, Luka Purpa. You've got Timo Melic in the middle as well, alongside a trialist. Out in the back, you had Coronado. You had Kyle Adams, you had Robert Castellanos, another trialist, and a keeper as a trialist. So this looked to be like a BC team in this match.
Yeah, well, of course, you just also want to mix things up, make sure that, well, any lineup that can really happen can work well together, because at the end of the day, we all know the biggest thing is, well, chemistry. How much can they gel throughout this whole season? And that would definitely help, considering that we'll see Kyle Adams a couple of times up in Houston and Kyle Adams for most of it in the RGV. So that will be something interesting to see. And, well, just like you said, and going back to like the interchanging, that really helps you if you have these two players that can play not only on one side, being the right wing, but also switching over to the left wing. That helps with depth, and that is perfect for something to, well, hopefully not only improve, but just get better in the future. So yeah, really just improve in the future, and we can see two of these players, well, not having any problem having to fill in a gap.
So, okay. So, just a couple of things. First, before we go on, I do want to invite you that if you guys have not subscribed to the channel, if you guys are new here, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to give this video a like and share it with all of your RGVFC and Dynamo friends, so that way more people listen and participate in talking about Toros in not just in the 90 minutes of the home matches, but during the week as well. So having said this, let's go ahead and go on. To me, it seemed like this, even with not having Chelo, even with not having Connor Donovan now that he left for North Carolina FC, without Andrew Samuels, who was also playing with the Dynamo, or Nico Lemoyne. You know, I saw a team that, yes, they didn't generate up in the attack, but for the most part, they knew they were able to handle the Dynamo attack and limit them to 1 goal per period in the first two. So the first goal was scored by Tomás Martinez, and then in the second period, the goal was scored by Mauro Manotas. And one of the things that I do have to say here, and we talked about it many times, Jacob, having to do with mental errors, mental mishaps. That second goal, that was a giveaway by one of the trialists, if I'm not mistaken, and passed it back, tried to pass it back to Castellanos for that way he could clear it, but instead he gave it straight to Minor Figueroa. And Minor Figueroa just crossed it in for Mauro Manotas and his signature slide to just pretty much put the ball in on goal. Mm-hmm. And this is where I say that we need to take these matches against top opponents as seriously as possible and be able to learn from their mistakes. Because you had this mistake that cost us a goal. You had another mistake, I believe it was in the third period. No, it was there in the second period as well. Where, who was it? I don't recall off the top of my head who it was, but one of the defenders tried to pass the ball up in the air right in front of goal, like from one side of the field to the other, but right in front of goal, where there was, I believe, 2 Dynamo players just waiting to poach. And that could have been bad, because one of the more elemental things that coaches tell you, never put the ball right in front of your goal.
Yeah.
And you were there in the press room, in the press box when that happened. I was like, really, I couldn't believe it, and I was fuming over that. It's like, yes, I didn't go for a goal, but it's something so simple that you should know as somebody who has played either in college and it pretty much is aspiring to be a professional player. That's something that you'd tell 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds back when you're pretty much being developed in the youth academy.
Yeah, I mean, as we expected some of those mistakes, we didn't expect a mistake exactly like that, but it is true. It's just like you said, something that you're taught at a young age to not do. And one thing that could have, benefited that was just passing it out and then sending it out of play or past midfield if you had to. But in my opinion, it's just, that's also when you get out of college or when you are inside college. And I know that we've talked to coach about this, and I've seen it with my own eyes from high school to college level soccer. Is that's the way that they like to play. They like to play with the long ball, and even trying to clear it away is something like that. Of course, it is a preseason game, but those are mistakes that, well, for sure will be cleaned up before, if I had to guess, before the season begins.
So, looking at the chat, you have so Gilbert says, when I talk to him, I'm guessing he's talking about Kyle Adams. It says, so first Gilbert says, speaking of chemistry, the team in the first 30 minutes looked good, quick, good connections, and getting chances. And then you have Jorge says Salazar is a good USL player, but can't seem to figure it out in MLS. Well, with that being said, let's give Tab Ramos a chance to mold him into his style. Let's not forget that Wilmer tried to put Michael Salazar out on the wing in MLS play rather than as a true striker. So let's give him the opportunity to kind of mold under Tab Ramos rather instead of because of last year say that he's not going to be good in MLS. There's going to be different tactics, a different style of play under Tab Ramos compared to Wilmer Cabrera, and let's go ahead and see if he fits to that. If by this season he can't seem to figure it out when given opportunities in MLS, then I guess you can say that he is a USL player and not really an MLS player. And yeah, Sly Rooster says, let's hope Tab works him out. Gilbert says, to be fair, he didn't get very much first team time and he was still without much game time. Plus, he was coming back with an injury. Let's not forget that. And Jorge says, Ronaldo, a make or break season with RGV. Yes, Ronaldo Pena, if I'm not mistaken, was playing with RGV in this preseason match. Mm-hmm. How surprising was that for you?
Not really surprising considering how he played last year at close to the end of the season. Mm-hmm. We talked about it so much last year with him. He's a player that can be very inconsistent, has a bit of an attitude towards him as well. Let's not forget that, and just sometimes also has a hot head. So it's just one of those players that, when we had seen back down here, especially since he was playing for the Toros, it felt like his life was over, and that's kind of the way that he played, in my opinion. Now, of course, hopefully he gets back to his old form and goes back to Houston Dynamo and still can save his career, basically. But it is a huge make or break season for him playing for RGVFC. Let's see if he will actually take it more serious, just like he did in MLS. It's that mentality thing that we kind of have always gone back to. We had it with Carlos Small last year, and we've had it with a couple of other players that came through with, the Dynamo. So it really does go all the way back to just, it is a make or break season for him, and we'll see if it is the same with maybe even, Sam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's interesting to me is it could be both a good thing or a bad thing that we surprisingly, or the Dynamo has surprisingly a lot of strikers in their roster. You've got Moro, you've got Christian Ramirez, you've got Ronaldo Pena, you've got Michael Salazar, and now you've also got Greg McLaughlin within the organization playing for the Toros. So you've got 5 players that can play a striker position. And you have to remember that Tab Ramos is going to want to go with a 4-3-3 formation. So you're not going to need a lot of strikers or true number 9s on the field and on the bench. So you've technically got 3 extras: Michael Salazar, Ronaldo Pena, and Greg McLaughlin with RGV. Mm-hmm. So the fact that Salazar was able to suit up with the Dynamo and Ronaldo Pena was with RGV, I think it pretty much goes to show how the echelon is going to be, and that the biggest competition will be between Ronaldo and McLaughlin.
Yeah.
And it's sad because I know that Dynamo fans were so eager about Ronaldo Pena because he came in with very high accolades, winning with Venezuela, the Venezuela youth, and they thought he would be like the next Moro or something, but he never actually gelled out with the Toro or with the Dynamo due to injuries. And then you've also got Mauro going out on a hot streak and not, and then bringing in Christian Ramirez, so I think he's going to have to take being with the Toros a whole lot more seriously than he did last year, because last year when he was brought down to the Toros, really, missed a couple of penalties. Oh, and here's the kicker. He says in an interview, back when he came back with the Dynamo after playing against Stoke. Remember that match that we played in Orange County and we lost and Ronaldo missed a PK? So that next weekend he played with the Dynamo. I went to that game and covered it. And he pretty much said that when he gets sent out to RGV, they told him, don't take it, or he says that they tell him to have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. I still have, if I'm not mistaken, I still have that video. I'll see if I can try and find it on my phone. But when I heard that, I was like, are you kidding me? It's like, are we as RGVFC fans just gonna have to deal with that? Players coming in from the Dynamo to the Toros not with the right mentality as everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the way that it will most likely go. And it's weird. Now, Ronaldo Pena, just like you said, Dynamo players were expecting a lot more, and they didn't get it. It is a huge make-or-break season for him going back to all that. But, of course, moving forward, and what you were saying, it's very frustrating. I know for a fact that a couple of these guys, like Kyle Adams, they'll try their hardest when they play for RGVFC, when they get sent down and all that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And I expect that, and especially those players that will most likely be coming back from injury. We know it's going to happen. One player that we could see down here, and Dynamo fans are going to hate me for this, but oh well, because it's going to be Elise. What the heck happened? I know we'll get into it later, but what happened to Albert Elise, I believe in the first or maybe second period of play, where he just all of a sudden stopped running because he got tugged on and then had to be instantly subbed off because he was nursing some type of injury. That's one thing that, of course, RGVFC is known for, getting those players back on their feet. And, well, it might be a small injury. He might be ready for the 28th of February, but it's just something that, we'll think about. And if he gets sent down here, how tough will he take it and all that crazy things. But I know that Matt Jordan, especially with Tab Ramos will make sure to say, don't take it seriously. You want your starting position back? You want to be back on this first team? Well, kick butt in RGV. Make sure that you're giving it 100% constantly. I really do feel like it's going to be kind of different since, of course, Tab Ramos, I might be too much of a fanboy for that head coach, but you're just talking about, he's from the youth development. He knows exactly what to expect, especially when he's sending players like, Ronaldo Pena down here to try and get them to polish them up. Apparently they weren't polished up enough or something like that, where they just need to try hard and hopefully get up to the first team.
So, one of the things that is always harped upon in youth coaching is, and I remember when I played in middle school, and they would always say, always practice like if it was a match, like always give your 100% in practice like if it was an actual soccer match on the weekend. So it's pretty frustrating that a professional player, just because he is not playing with the first team and is playing with the affiliate, is not going to give it their 100% as their injury or whatever they're nursing back from allows it.
Yeah.
But the fact that you blatantly get yourself red carded, Fuenmayor, and making dumb mistakes. Yeah, I'm calling him out.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was thinking about that exact same thing. Who was it that got that blatant red card for it?
That was funny.
It was him.
That was funny. And people are gonna say, "Oh, like, why are you so harsh, like calling him out?" I mean, how else is he gonna realize that people are noticing the mistakes that he's doing at RGV? He think maybe there's some players coming down from the Dynamo is like, "Oh, nobody cares about RGV. Nobody from Houston is gonna find out if I do this stupid mistake or something like that." Well, no, papacito, no. You got these two guys right here on the screen that. If you make something that is blatantly dumb, wherein you know that you have the talent to be MLS level, then we're going to call you out for it.
Yeah.
And of course, yes, on the flip side, if you do something good, and this goes for any player out there, whether Dynamo or RGV, if you guys do good stuff, we'll praise you for it. But if you do stuff that's going to hinder this team's performance, and the hard work that Gerson Echeverry and the players have put in during the week to perform it on Saturday or whatever day they play, and you do something stupid like that, it puts the team at a blatant disadvantage, especially against the rival. Of course, people are going to get pissed. Mm-hmm. But anyway, rants about Fuenmayor over about that. The point is, wherever you're at, you got to try and give it your 100% as much as you can. Right? Even if it means you're going to be playing with the under 17s or whatever, you got to give it your 100% because you have to prove to the coach and the first team that, hey, I'm ready for MLS level. If you're doing stupid mistakes and the second division, how is that going to give the first team coach the confidence that you're not going to do the same thing in MLS? And when he didn't do it, okay, he made spectacular saves when he came back with MLS. If you know you can perform well in the first division, why can't you replicate that in the second division when it's needed?
Yeah, sure.
So,
very true.
Yeah,
very true there.
So the chat's pretty popping today. So Johnny says, create a culture where they won't feel like they're just playing a pickup game at RGV, which is something that Tab Ramos really wants to do. He's always mentioning this in almost every interview. They want to make it seem like RGV is part of the Dynamo first team and not just, yeah, they're just the affiliate. And I'm really looking forward to that. We'll talk about this more later on once we hear the words from Gerson Echeverry and Tab Ramos, and we'll discuss that there. And then Jorge says Fuenmayor was my first thought too. LOL. Gilbert says Stampede group chat when we see Fuenmayor play blowing up. Every time I saw Fuenmayor with RGV, I knew we were going to have a hard time. Yep. And you know what's fun? You know what's funny though? What was it? Because he messed up. I remember now. So right after he got red carded against San Antonio, 2 weeks after he served his suspension, he played as a starter again against Austin Bold, and he was about to do the same mistake he made against San Antonio. He was about to do the same thing against Austin Bold. Luckily for him, they called an offensive foul against the Austin Bold player, but oh my, like, it was like this. That was like, this cannot be happening. But yeah, that's Fuenmayor in a nutshell. It seems to me like that's, I guess you could say, like a lack of professionalism, maturity, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, exactly. And then it can go back and forth with all of that. One thing that I would want to mention as well, not only with that, is also from our trialists on the field on Saturday night and all of that is, and especially with this team, because we've seen this for a couple of years, is that, well, we don't necessarily see a lot of the practice. Ray has covered a lot of that throughout the years, but one thing is they could just be dominating practice, but when it gets to the main stage, which would be in practice, or not practicing on the stadium, but playing a game there, they could get stage fright. And we've talked about it before and why these players ended up starting a game instead of these. And to be fair, we're not necessarily behind the closed doors, and so it becomes this thing where, well, we don't know if this guy was amazing in practice. We didn't know why Ben Willis was starting at goal instead of, Nico Corti from the past year, something like that, because we didn't necessarily see it behind the closed doors. And so that's something that also we'll just need to look out for more, especially this year. And, well, what we can find out from what will most likely be the starting 11 come March 28th. Or wait, March 8th.
March 8th. Yeah. Yeah, which is gonna be on a Sunday. So let's not forget that. So and then Gilbert says, because they brought up Junqua versus like Fueni. He says at least Junqua tries. He's not great, but he's trying, and we saw that last season. We talked about it, right? How Sam Junqua was improving from the previous match where he started with RGVFC. He seemed a lot more connected. He seemed a lot more confident out on the pitch with the Toros than he was in the first couple of matches that he played with us. But at the end of the day, you got to put in your better players, and we saw that with Coach Echeverri at the last 5 matches where we were undefeated, where it was Robert Coronado, and Robert Coronado, even though Sam Junqua was loaned down to RGV. And that's what we want to see more. We want this team to, whenever possible, if you have to rotate players because you're playing weekend match, midweek match, weekend match, then okay, rotate some players, right? Mm-hmm. But besides that, you got to put in your best 11 out there, whether from practice or from the previous match. And I loved where Coach Echeverri actually did that those last couple of matches. Call it a coincidence or whatever you call it. To me, it's too much of I don't think it's a coincidence that when you maintain some sort of consistency in your lineup, we saw the best Toros last year. Yeah,
it's 100% true. And I mean, talking about Sam Junqua, he did play on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. And, well, he has made some mistakes, but also it's the same deal, still trying to get better as well. So that's always a plus. We'll probably see him down in RGV as well. And that will be something interesting to see. Now, going back to Robert Coronado, for these whole 30-minute periods, it was a pretty impressive performance from him, as well as just that team. Of course, we only got to see him for so long, but it was good to just, well, see what Coronado could do even without his twin basically beside him.
Yeah.
Yes, it will always make us sad, but guess what? Chewy is in a better place, and it is.
Excuse me. Wait. What did you say?
Why am I saying that?
Wait. Did you just say that?
Not with Houston Dynamo getting, well, just misunderstood, kind of. I'll put it in the nicest way possible. Misunderstood instead of, well, kind of just also just, we'll sign you to an MLS contract, but you'll have to play it with RGVFC, and then we'll probably kick you off the team after this.
and not play you for U.S. Open Cup. By the way, guys, if you guys are listening through the podcast, that was Jacob Young with that comment. That was Edson Ochoa had nothing to do with this. Just putting it out there for all our podcast listeners. By the way,
podcast because of Houston Dynamo. It's not because of RGVFC. It's because of Houston. Why he would technically be in a better place.
Okay, Charlie Ward. They're right. They're right. But hopefully, hopefully the situation improves with Tab Ramos. So speaking of podcasts, be sure if you guys miss any part of this show, or if you guys want to re-listen without having to play the video, because I know regular YouTube app does not allow you to either exit out of the app or turn off the screen and listen to it unless you have YouTube Red. So you can actually listen to our podcast on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and of course on the BGN website, which we will be now that we have control over the Rio Grande Valley page on the BGN.FM. Thank you, Mike. We'll be more consistent with the podcast versions on the RSS feed, and of course we want to thank our audio producer Justin Finger for his help in getting us those podcast versions available for your listening pleasures. So one thing I do want to go back with, because I know you mentioned it before, but we kind of got sidetracked along the way. You talked about Albert Thalys and him coming into the match as a substitution, 3 minutes later, he pulls something and he's out of the match. So one of the things that Tab Ramos mentioned after the game was that he gave the order to the players, to the Dynamo players, hey, if you guys feel anything, any little thing that doesn't feel right about your body, if you pulled something or anything like that, we'll just sub you out. They don't want to risk losing players for something minor and ends up becoming major because you try to play it off. You know what I mean? At this point in time, you're in preseason. You need the most players you can, especially if you're pretty much the franchise player of the Houston Dynamo. You've got the Visit Tucson Sun Cup coming up this weekend, and you can't risk yourself like that. I know there was another player. I think it was Zarek. No, it wasn't Zarek Valentin. Victor Cabrera. Victor Cabrera as well. He got into a mid-air collision, heads collision with an RGV player. He got subbed off right away because of concussion protocol. So it's those kind of things. Why risk it? It's a meaningless, in air quotes, preseason match. You're not going for points. You're not going for a trophy. Don't risk yourself like that. I mean, it was a simple little thing. I mean, Albert Thalys was going to burn Robert Coronado, and Robert kind of pulled a little bit on his left shoulder. And I don't know if that caused him to pull something, but right off the bat, you had the trainers come in, check him, and he's like, you know what? All right, they subbed him out. So yeah. That's pretty much it on the Albert Thalys thing. It was a precautionary thing. What does surprise me, though, is that we haven't heard anything else since that day about whether it was something minor, if he'll be good for this weekend, or what happened to him in that play, if he got any kind of injury at all. I don't think they've ever announced anything. So we'll see if somebody digs that up. So Jorge says the problem will be whenever we have a rehab player go down and needs playing time. And Johnny, look what he said. He says Chewy disappeared in the last few games, though. To be fair, the last two games he wasn't even called to the starting 18 because of injury.
Well, I mean, if it's because of injury, it's because of injury. So, obviously, they're going to do that. And we had players that stepped up. RGVFC had players that stepped up, yes, obviously, or else they wouldn't have gone on this 5-game win streak. So, I mean, you answered it yourself. It's not really a burden as much as we had players to help. And Chuy Enriquez to go over to San Antonio FC had nothing to do with those last 5 games.
Yeah, he had no idea where he was going, to be honest.
Exactly.
And I
did not know.
Yeah. So, anyways, all right. So we talked about, okay. So some of the good things that we saw from RGVFC in this match. Number one, obviously, the fact that they limited the Dynamo to 1 goal per period in the first 2 periods. I think they looked solid in the back. They didn't have a lot of opportunities, attacking opportunities, because the Dynamo was playing true to their style, and just like Kyle Adams mentioned in that interview that he had with us a couple of after the Dynamo Fan Fest, he said Tab Ramos will play a 4-3-3 formation, looking for a high pressure tactic when defending. So pretty much strikers are going to be your first defenders kind of thing. And we saw that this week, or this past weekend.
Yeah.
The difference is that some of our RGV players couldn't handle that pressure, so they lost the ball really quickly, right? But when they lost it, more often than not, they were able to limit Albert Lee. Well, not even Albert Lee's going to work. They were able to limit Mauro Manotas. They were able to limit who played on the wings before him, Nico Hansen, and who else? There's some other. I don't remember exactly who the player was that was playing out in the wing as well. But they were able to limit them to not having a lot of dangerous opportunities, right? So that's a good thing. In the second period, in the middle of the second period, you had RGVFC bringing in more of bench warmers or second stringers and third stringers into the match. Somebody mentioned about Tyberson. Tyberson looked a little shaky. He didn't do much because he received very little balls or passes, that would help him out. And when he did, there was a lot of pressure to try to take the ball away from him, from either Struna or not Fuenmayor, or Figueroa or Adam Lundqvist. So the wingers had a hard time. I mean, you gotta look at Kiki Struna. He's built. Maynard Figueroa, same thing. So it's gonna be difficult going past those guys. But they were able to limit them, and that's pretty much it. Second half, like I said, started. Some second stringers came in. It was not until like the third and fourth period, or the third period, they limited the Dynamo second stringers to 0 goals. The Dynamo had Tommy McNamara, they had Cello, they had Fuenmayor, they had Salazar, and other players that are, you can say, Darwin Saran as well, and Boniek Garcia, and they were able to limit it to 0 goals. Mm-hmm. So, but when RGV placed in their young academy players in the match, especially in the back line, that's where we started seeing a lot more mistakes, and that's where the Dynamo scored the final 3 goals. 2 by Salazar, 1 by Tommy Mack on a penalty that was about to be saved. Just putting it out there just to add fuel to the fire to the Tommy Mack doubters.
Yeah, I think I'm going to mute my mic, and I'll be right back, actually. If y'all can't hear, my dogs are howling. So.
Okay, yeah, sure, go ahead. So Jorge says, are any of the Cabreras still on the team? No. None of the Cabreras are on the team anymore. David Cabrera is not on the team. He's not a trialist. He was not part of the list that was given to us on Saturday. And Wilmer's still with Butler. And Wilmer is still going to be kicking it with Butler. David Cabrera, I'm not sure where he is. So no, there are no Cabreras with the Toros for this upcoming season. Other one says, Little balls, Tyverson. MLS not ready for long hair T-Mac. Wow. Well, hopefully T-Mac is better this season than last year. Anyway, so now that we kind of said the good things that we saw from this match. Now, granted, remember this is a preseason match against an MLS team. So I think you could say that the level of play might be a little bit skewed, but they were able to fare on. But here's the nitpicky things I saw. Passing, because of Dynamo's pressure, was very inaccurate at times. Even when we had our first, second stringers in the first period, because they couldn't. It felt like the Dynamo pressure was making our players to kind of rush things. So they were trying to look for passes, just to try to get rid of the ball before a Dynamo player came and took it away from them. And they ended up just being intercepted. There wasn't a lot of shots on goal either. I think at the end of the 4 periods, it was like 3 shots on goal by RGV and like 22 by the Dynamo. So opportunities on goal were very scarce, and the ones that were, they were very, because they weren't very accurate or very powerful, to be honest. And then I guess that's just pretty much it from what we saw. Like we said, this match was mostly all Dynamo, and the Toros were out there trying to defend and try to build something. Obviously, they were trying. Like, you could tell that the Toros were not gonna settle and stay back like other teams would if they're going against MLS. Obviously, because you want to give some opportunity to your strikers to do something as well. But what I did see is because of the fact that the Dynamo kind of forced them to stay back, Greg McLaughlin in the first couple of periods that he played was very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? He was very separated from his midfielders. He was isolated. So that didn't help at all for the Toros to get some opportunities on goal. And then you've also caught Timo Melic, didn't really have a lot of opportunities to show his shot power from outside the box. I know a lot of people have been, pretty much been asking or have been eager to see him in motion or in action with his long outside the box long shots. But the Dynamo didn't give him any easy opportunities for him to do so. What else? I know I'm forgetting something. So, Jacob, if you think of something else, just say it.
I mean, one thing to talk about kind of is set pieces. I think the Dynamo, or not only the Dynamo, but the RGVFC, I know they had a couple of opportunities in on goal for set pieces. It's kind of how it happened off of corners. And, well, their corner kicks, of course, that's one thing that they kind of struggled with last season. And I think bringing that up because a couple of them were for they looked okay. It's very difficult, of course, against an MLS team with some height difference to try and get something on goal, basically. But it's just something to kind of think of that. Well, I don't believe on defense a goal was scored off of the set piece for RGVFC, which is a plus, but a goal was not scored for them off a set piece. So it went a little both ways.
Which, by the way, is something that Coach Echeverri said on the record that he really wants to improve. Mm-hmm. I don't remember. I think it was last week's episode in one of the training interviews that they made with Coach Echeverri. He mentioned that one of his biggest focus on the defense this season is going to be defending set pieces. He wants to improve that, especially away. Also, you've got, what else? Okay, so here's a question. So Jorge says, this might have been spoken about in other shows, but is RGV Toros running the same formation and training to keep both organizations in sync? To me, it seems that way. Mm-hmm. Because like I mentioned, it seemed like the Toros were trying out a 4-3-3 formation against the Dynamo as well, with Perpa, the trialist, and Malic in the midfield. And then last season, the Dynamo would use a 4-2-3-1 formation. So did the Toros. When the Dynamo switched to a 2-striker formation when they brought in Christian Ramirez, the same thing happened with the Toros between Michael Salazar and Carlos Esmal. So the intention is of this organization is that they're going to try to keep formations and tactics and trainings in sync with each other, so that way that if a Dynamo player gets relegated, hashtag ProRel for America. If a Dynamo player gets sent down to RGV, or a RGV player gets given a Dynamo contract or trains with the first team, there isn't a lot of difference, and they're able to go in sync properly with the new organization that they're playing with. So that's the idea behind that. So I do see that happening right now with the Toros. Also, so we talked about the match. Before we move on, because I know it's already going to be 8. Before we move on to the next topic, Jacob, and anything else that you want to talk about the match?
Not really. I mean, it was as expected as can be. Just Houston, of course, were trying out their own thing, and that the good thing also is that, well, RGVFC, at least they're trying with the same formation, which will always be a plus, especially for players coming down this season and players heading up, if that happens for RGVFC and they get some playing time, especially in maybe an Open Cup or anything like that. But of course, it was, well, all in all, it was a first showing in general. We'll see what happens when they actually play against a USL team in this preseason, which should be coming up not too soon from now.
Yes, this Saturday they're playing at Austin Bold. Who, by the way, Austin Bold has been, I mean, they lost against, I think they lost against El Paso, but this is still a really good team to look out for. Then on February 22nd, they're playing at Southern Methodist University. So I think they're playing in the Dallas area. I think that's where SMU is, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Okay. And then February 28th, which is going to be a Friday, they're playing at San Antonio FC. So those are the next couple of preseason matches coming up. I do want to see, like you mentioned, how do they fare against, first of all, they're playing today against UTRGV. How they fare against Austin and San Antonio. I think that's going to be a bigger indicator on where this team is at in comparison with other USL teams. So looking forward to those matches as well. So next topic. One of the things that we noticed about that Saturday, before and during the match, was the union between the Stampede and El Batallón, who made the trip down to the Rio Grande Valley. Mm-hmm. We talked so many weeks about an apparent discord, and I'm not talking about the app, but we were talking many weeks about an apparent discord that could be seen in social media between Dynamo fans and RGVFC fans. But it's good, and it's something that I applaud. Like, if you guys follow, you know, the podcast that I'm in, whether back with Gen Orange or with the Peel, I've criticized El Batallón many, many times. Some of them warranted. Some of them turns out to be not what the social media mentioned about, and I'm talking about that LAFC incident. But just as I've criticized El Batallón or Texan Army, today I'm going to praise Cisco for coming up with this idea and El Batallón for going with it. And that is going up at the third and fourth quarter, going up to the Stampede area, and both supporters groups joining forces to support both the Dynamo and the Toros in this match. And Johnny is not going to let me lie, but I feel like both supporters groups learned a lot from each other from last Saturday.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that is true as well, because it's annoying and tiring to see all this crap on Twitter about how much, well, RGVFC players and RGVFC sucks and Houston Dynamo sucks for doing this and that, all that bull, and just it gets annoying because at the end of the day, we're still a freaking team as one, and it's going to stay that way for at least this whole entire year, and it was for last year, and it just goes that same way. I mean, both you and I have been called on Twitter Dynamo, whatever, Dynamo fans or whatever we got called on Twitter. It's just, it gets annoying. It's dumb to talk about. It's frustrating. And then finally, you see this, at least for a bit, of union and think, well, that's good. Hopefully it stays like that. And hopefully the fans will understand it. Well, of course, with that union, the fans, I believe, though, at least that group understands, oh, well, yeah, we understand what's going on. Matt Jordan might suck a bit, but at that same time, we're just trying to have both teams do really well and hopefully have some success coming up.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And Johnny just put on the chat, he says, yeah, most of our guys didn't know how hard a supporters groups has to be. So thank you for setting the example. And I really, like I said, I really appreciate that gesture by El Batallon, which I applaud, you know. So hopefully this is the sign of better things to come regarding the relationship between both teams. And hopefully it turns out for just like in hopefully the tactical or the technical aspect and relationship improves between both clubs. I sure hope that the same thing happens between both fan bases and we become a very tighter knit family between both and not necessarily have to deal with independence.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally would like independence, but if there's going to be some huge improvements being with the Dynamo now that Tab Ramos is here, I might as well just stick around, you know,
exactly,
and deal with it. But at least the Dynamo wants some, as well as Dynamo and RGV want to see some improvement in the relationship. I think it's time, and I said it before, I think it's time for both clubs to push together towards the same common goal rather than pulling at each other towards the different and opposite ends of the spectrum. And we're not going to go anywhere like that. And that's one of the things that Tab Ramos and Anderson Echeverry talked about in their post-game conferences, which if you guys want to listen to the post-game conference videos, be sure to check out Ray's YouTube channel, South Texas Border Sports, and check out the interviews that he had with Coach Echeverry, with Tab Ramos, and with Isidro Martinez. Sadly, we don't have enough time to play all of them, so you can check that out there. You guys have any opinions on it? Be sure to post it on social media, and we'll be more than happy to interact with y'all on social media. So, anyways. So Johnny says Matt Jordan sucks more than a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a given.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to defend him really, but I'll just say this one thing. Every single person in that front office is trying to save their own butt. So as much as you can tell that, well, Matt Jordan's not really going to want to talk that much or not really going to let anything loose into the media, he's just going to give that same answer every single time. And I 100% understand that, because at the end of the day, and this sucks, sports is still a freaking business. So as much as he can save his butt and keep working with the same team, he'll do exactly that. That same goes for Tab Ramos. The same went for Wilmer Cabrera last year as our head coach. So yeah, it's just going to be that way sometimes with a couple of them, and hopefully, of course, we'll see a little bit of a change. Hopefully, this next year. And what I mean by that is just maybe if someone gets injured, they'll actually say because you're supposed to. It's kind of a rule in USL at least, and also I believe in MLS. You have to give a list of who is going to be on the injury reserve list or whatever like that.
Correct.
So hopefully they actually can abide by that rule this year.
Hopefully. I mean, we just had the example by San Antonio FC where they announced that Christian Pirano was going to be out for a couple of weeks due to a knee injury. You had Aldo Quintanilla out for the whole season, and they never said why or why. We ended up finding out because of his Instagram anyway. But there was never an official announcement or press release saying that Aldo was out because of this surgery or anything like that. So I do hope for some more transparency by the organization. But from what I've been hearing, the culprit of that lack of transparency has one name: Wilmer Cabrera.
It could be changed this year.
So yes. So Cisco says, Jorge says, props to Tab for making a real impact on the organization. Cisco says, I hope the boys can make a game here in Houston to experience a match and maybe take a bit of it back. He's always very happy to teach. Hopefully, Johnny, if you can organize something like that, I think it'd be great to have you guys here in Houston for a match. Not necessarily the home opener, but at least one home match here in Houston that you guys can make the trip over here, and the Toros don't play at HEB Park. It'd be great to have you guys here, kind of get used to the environment of a supporters group section with the Hustle Town supporters here. Hopefully that can happen. All right, moving on to the next topic. Monday, there was an announcement that was kind of lost. I guess you could say it was kind of lost within a press release. And that was the announcement that Isidro Martinez, Andrew Samuels, Ben Willis, and I'm missing somebody. It's Ben Willis, Isidro, Andrew Samuels, and
Was that Lemoyne?
Nico Lemoyne. Thank you. Nicola Lemoyne. Those 4 players were invited by the Houston Dynamo to be a part of the roster for the, I was about to say Mobile Mini. We're not paid by Mobile Mini, guys. I'm sorry that you had to hear that. No, by the Visit Tucson Sun Cup. That's going to happen this weekend. Jacob, what do you think of this?
Well, I mean, I think it's great for their experience for sure. They'll get a lot of a view into this. I know they've changed this cup a couple of times. But if I'm not mistaken, it's still group stage and knockout, or is it just knockout now?
I think it is group stage and knockout. Hold on.
Okay, so we'll probably see them a couple of times, maybe in the group stage at least, and for sure, just getting to practice with the team will be huge. But of course, you're taking away Ben Willis from RGVFC, so that will be just a little bit tough for them. You're taking away Nico Lemoyne because they still need to practice for some preseason matchups as well. But like I said, it will be a good experience for these Toro players to really just see what Cab Ramos has to offer, especially with this team going to Tucson, maybe getting to play and just seeing how an MLS game will kind of be, especially since it will be all MLS players. Don't get me wrong, they deserve to be there 100%. But at the same time, sometimes I'd rather see them with RGVFC, but it doesn't look like at the moment they are necessarily practicing too much. RGVFC are.
So I did want to point that. I did want to bring that up because I did mention about it on the. And I'm sorry for spamming you all throughout the day today about tonight's show, but apparently it kind of worked. So one of the things that I did bring up in one of those posts was how beneficial this can be for RGVFC. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned obviously you mentioned the bad things about this, right? But what do you think are the good things that the Toros can benefit from these call-ups?
Well, I think kind of like I said, it's great experience. They, whether or not they play or not, they're still hearing the coaching. They're still practicing with this first team, seeing how they can improve facing off against, well, once again, Albert Elise or Amaro Manotas again. Mm-hmm. And that's very important, of course. And then Ben Willis trying to save, well, a very powerful shot in that goal or something like that. And so it helps talking, of course, for Ben Willis especially, because we know that Houston Dynamo are really good at producing goalkeepers. Mm-hmm. Talking to this goalkeeping coach, trying to pick up some pointers even from the new keepers that had transferred down here, which is huge. And I can't think of their names because they've changed, sadly.
Yes,
Marco is not with us, or anyone like Tyler Derrick.
Yeah, so, Marco Maric and Cody Cooper.
Marco Maric and Cody Cooper, exactly.
Is it Cody or Corey? I don't remember.
Well, either way, both of them, like Maric or Cooper, is still a big thing. You get to talk to them, you get to get some pointers, and it goes for Lemoyne. It just goes once again for each of them, and that's very important. It will help you with, well, the knowledge, and that's a big thing. You can have soccer skills on the field, but if you don't have that soccer knowledge,
Cody Cropper,
kind of just that soccer smarts, then it's going to be very difficult to produce that even on the field too. And so to try and just figure out, well, 4-3-3, okay, but what am I supposed to do in 4-3-3? Can I not switch or do any of this? Not really just think ahead and almost be a leader. So it will help them just get further and further in depth into just, well, benefiting them with soccer smarts and things like that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was thinking of. You know, the fact that they're going to continuously be not only with their own teammates of the Dynamo first team, you know, getting to go against these higher caliber players, but also with your opponents. You know, if they play some minutes at the Sun Cup, and you're going up against other teams, the other MLS teams, in this tournament, then they might get they might be better prepared come March 8th, come the beginning of the USL season, than if they stayed with the Toros playing against SMU and San Antonio and Austin Bold. Personal opinion, honestly, but it's like they say, like what's the saying about knives being sharpened by the something like that. Mm-hmm. Iron sharpens iron, or something like that. And I think it's a good opportunity for them to grow in preparation. Now, you have to remember as well that, I mean, we've had three keepers besides Ben Willis, not officially announced. They were all trialists. But the fact that one of the trialists, and I'm just going to say it right here, I won't say who he is, the name yet, because nothing is official. But I know one of the trialist goalkeepers that we do have, that we had on Saturday, is an experienced goalkeeper. So I think we'll be fine for the next couple of games if Ben Willis continues to be with the Houston Dynamo for the Sun Cup. So I think in that aspect we should be fine, and I think we gain a lot more from this than what we lose.
Yeah. And that's true for sure. We do gain a lot more than we do lose, because both those players, it's not like they're not training. That's a big thing. They're still doing something. They're going to be out in Tucson in gorgeous weather, by the way, because if I'm not mistaken, around Tucson, Arizona today, it was about in the 60s, which is beautiful weather in the desert for sure.
Yeah.
So that's right off the bat, that's great. And second off, just like we said, well, they might be training some, or I mean, they will be training some. They might be playing some, and we'll be getting insight from Tab Ramos. Which, guess what? If I had to guess, because the one thing actually going also back to that RGVFC and Houston Dynamo game, if you do recall, Tab Ramos also met Jerson at midfield to kind of talk about what was going on with RGVFC and what he saw and what could kind of be improved. So he also, and we keep going back to the youth thing, so he knows how to do that, and it's going to be great to just really, once again, pick up those pointers from Ramos, because he knows what he's talking about, and that's huge. And that would be great being brought back. And then these young players that will get an opportunity for RGVFC going into Austin Bowl. That by far is, well, you think about it, it's a tough place to play still. Even if it's a friendly, it's still a pretty difficult place to play, and it's still going to be against your rivals. So the intensity is going to be a bit up. You want to succeed, show off basically your skills against a USL team, and that's going to help our subs out tremendously, and maybe we'll see some of them on the first team starting.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that. And the other winger I was trying to remember was Deshane Beckford. Back when we were talking about Tyberson, it's Deshane Beckford as well.
Or as he now goes by, Dr. Beckford. I believe that's his Instagram handle. No joke.
Yeah, but I think we should baptize him by that nickname, the Doctor.
Exactly.
But he's got to earn it though. Just like Robert earned himself the nickname of Turbo, at least in my eyes, then Deshane Beckford's gonna have to earn the Doctor nickname from us. Even though I'm pretty sure that's not why he has Dr. Beckford as his Instagram account, but I think that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, I think it's for Deshane and then his middle name Beckford.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it'd be pretty cool. So. Anything else that you want to touch upon, Jacob?
Well, I mean, real quick, we kind of brushed over this, but that last Thursday before the match for RGVFC, they had the big old media day. Basically, yeah, it was media days for RGVFC and Houston Dynamo, where it was a big press conference at I'm blanking on the name, but our owner's ranch, basically. And that was an amazing event. And it was really great to talk to some of the players and to meet Tab Ramos for the first time and see Mauro Manotas down. And if I'm not mistaken, he was there. But what I meant to say was, I'm blanking on the names. But either way, a great event, seeing the new jerseys as well for RGVFC. Just something that, well, we had kind of last year, but it got bigger, and Houston Dynamo players as well as coaches were there, and getting to interview them, getting to interview as well the new president of operations for RGVFC was big. I believe he's also the president for the Vipers.
No, he's actually not. He's actually not.
That is just for
yes.
Wow, that is news to me. I am sorry, but because of course you, especially having this all the way through with Bert Garcia, the man back.
Let's not get started on that.
For both.
Yes.
Basically for both. So you think about it, everyone on the team was for both. Like, they worked for the Vipers and worked for RGVFC, so that made things very difficult. And we can get back to marketing as well, and that made it very difficult for marketing to be able to market 2 teams, especially when one team was already very successful due to the fact of how many years they had been in business. So they tried to focus on that team more than they did for RGVFC. And also considering that Bert Garcia thought the stadium's going to draw fans.
So,
how dumb is that answer?
Yeah.
Though?
So basically, Ron Patel, he's in charge of the Toros, but he's also in charge of HEB Park and Bert Ogden Arena. But he's not the president of the Vipers as well. So he's specifically the president of the Toros. So that's a really good thing. Something we wanted and we got it. So Alonso Cantu, if you by any chance happen to stumble upon this podcast, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Seriously helps
I
us.
agree. It's something that we've been asking for. And if you notice, I think the Toros are starting to be a lot more, they're listening a lot more to the fans recently, and making changes to try to get more people on board. And hopefully with the addition of Ron Patel with the organization, we can really make this the Valley's team, which is something that he's striving for. He wants this team to have the identity of the Valley. So, talked about Ron Patel. Come on. You know you want to say it. What are your thoughts on the New Jerseys?
The New Jerseys? Well, they're Adidas, which is already great. Yes, I like Nike too, but Adidas jerseys, there's something about it that's always great. I love the home jerseys with a little design on the back of it and even on the front. They look spectacular. And the away jerseys, why even change that? It was already great last year too. So it was fantastic. And then the goalkeeping jerseys, talk about, they were amazing too. Purple color with, of course, Nature Valley across it. Always.
You know what the best?
It was great.
You know what the best part is? That that the sponsor patches, they are not a patch anymore. They are actually vinyl.
Yeah, and that's huge. You just need the logo to be a patch, and the rest of it, that's it.
So that I honestly, So here's my take on the kits. Obviously, I love the away kit a whole lot more. Even though the template is one that I never really liked, like Condivo, but I actually like the way it looks as a Toros kit. I'm still kind of on the Nature Valley logo. It's still not designer friendly to me. But I mean, they're the ones paying the money, so I guess I better just shut up, kind of thing.
Exactly.
The home kit, it's something different. Last year's kit was very conservative. This year's kit with that sleeve design, I think it looks really really good. If I had the money, I'd buy both, to be honest. But yeah, my favorite is the black one. But the goalkeeper kit though, that's on another level. I love it. I love it. It's something different. Exactly. It's something different.
Exactly. And I mean, it's great. There's nothing really else to say. It's different. We didn't expect this at all, and we're loving it. We're loving all 3 jerseys, which is the best thing. And I mean, I'd say technically I'm loving all 4 jerseys because, Houston Dynamo's got a great one as well with the 3 Adidas.
I don't agree with you, but that's
shoulder. It's perfect, but that's also for another time. I just wanted to see if I could get a reaction out of you, and I did. Edson.
Wow, what am I? Some sort of science experiment now, or social experiment? Wow, I see how it is now. No, I'm just kidding. Johnny says, and I know he's talked about this before with me, but this is the first time I think that he's brought it up publicly. He says they're bringing in guys from MLS, and by guys, he means front office staff. He says they're bringing in guys from MLS. Juan came from FC Frisco. So we have a front office member that came in from FC Dallas. So the fact that they're bringing in soccer experienced people into the front office speaks volumes on the change and to change the direction that they want to make for this team. And I'm all in for it.
100% all in for it as well. And something that I also want to bring up besides that is, I know that there's Matt Jordan, but then there's someone right below Matt Jordan that also apparently stays in RGV, but is part of Houston Dynamo
Nick
as
Kalba.
well. Exactly, him. And that is a great thing, to say so the least. Apparently, they are on communication a lot.
He's our GM.
That can always be a plus. And the more like that is what I'm trying to get at, the better it will be. Jerson is maturing into a great head coach as well. So it's just getting better and better and better. The only thing is now, players
got to step up.
They just need to perform. They might not perform in the first month of March, but from then on, April, May, June, July, August, we expect them to be absolutely successful. Why I'm giving them a 1 month buffer is just so that you, of course, know there's going to be some struggles with communication at the start, but once they really, really, really get to know each other on the field and what their likeness of passing or where they like to get the ball passed to them and where they like to stand on defense to try and get it back and where they can be helped and all that is going to probably take around that time. So that's exactly why I'd probably give them a buffer. It's just feeling like it's just going to get better and better and better.
Yeah. And like Johnny said, no more basketball personnel running the Toros.
Yes.
Thankfully. So, guys, I think this is tonight. This is the end of tonight's show. Really appreciate all seven of you watching right now for tuning in. Really appreciate your support, guys. Just give me one last favor. When this show ends, be sure to, if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel. Share it. Share this video on your social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Anything, carrier pigeon, it doesn't matter, or if you guys want to fan the flames, as long as you share us, we really do appreciate that. We're trying to grow our outreach in the Rio Grande Valley as best as we can. We want to make this fan base a very active fan base, and by what I mean by that is I want this fan base to be vocal about the Toros, not just for the 90 minutes at home, but every day of the week. Wear your Toros jersey at school, at school, when you're shopping, when you go out to eat, wherever. Talk about the Toros on social media. If you see somebody, mention the Toros, whether it's the Monitor, Channel 4, Telemundo, down in the valley, whatever. Share the heck out of it. Get more people involved. Make the traditional media, see that there is a market to cover the Toros in the Rio Grande Valley. And if you're in Houston, of course, you can do the same. You can, maybe the Dynamo will understand, hey, you guys need to make sure that the Dynamo fans know at least know about the Toros, about what's going on down here in the valley, because at the end of the day, we are technically part of the same organization, and their Dynamo front office needs to act like it is. And it's time to stop just dealing with words. I want some action in regards to the Toros as well. And yes, I've said that to John Walker in person. So, anyways. So be sure to do that. Be sure to be on the lookout when it does go in the podcast version. Once again, it's Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts, and of course on the BGN website, which we will be starting to update now that we've got more control over the Rio Grande Valley Toros page on BGN.fm. Also, we want to thank our sponsor, Natural Beauty Spa, for their support of Down in the Valley. We really appreciate it. And if you guys are interested in, I don't know, if you guys want to get a facial or your partner wants to get a facial, I really recommend it. So does Caste, Robert Castellanos, Robert Coronado, and of course Chu Enriquez. They recommend it as well. So if you guys are interested in that and you guys want more information about the prices or what Natural Beauty Spa has to offer, be sure to contact us and we'll make that happen for you right away. Natural Beauty Spa, give your skin what it deserves. And obviously, thank you, Mike Sparks and the Beautiful Game Network, and of course Ray of South Texas Border Sports for the footage. Sadly, we couldn't get to it today, but be sure to check it out on his YouTube channel at South Texas Border Sports, and listen to those interviews. Jacob, I know you've been very busy in your personal projects. You've had a really good interview the last couple of days. So be sure to tell us all about that.
Yeah, it was a great interview. Interviewed the racer Zoe Edenholm, and it was just a very fun back and forth interview. Getting to chat with her about her season last year in 2019 and try to get some info for 2020. Was able to sneak just a little bit, but she'll release it very soon. What she'll be doing in the future for this upcoming racing season. And it was, I mean, really, you'll just have to listen to it in order for it all to make sense. But it's still really great interview. Talked about her early career and how she got into racing and all of that fun stuff, which is not really how I like to start my interviews, but still very fun. Looking forward to cheering her on in this upcoming season, as well as all the other drivers that I've interviewed, and just keeping that grind on to try and get to June 5th, or 27 days from now. I'll be able to apply for a media credential for a Circuit of the Americas race on around the June 5th to June, I believe, 8th weekend. So that will be pretty fun. Still very excited to see what the future holds for all of that fun stuff. And well, yeah, also real quick, saw a really interesting game last night. It was the Mackay versus Memorial Soccer
McAllen Memorial
rivalry, both men's and ladies. Yes, McAllen Memorial.
How about the Mustangs?
And that was a both crazy games. Mackay ladies dominated the whole game with possession and all of that. Technically should have won in regulation. They hit the post like 3 or 4 times. McAllen Memorial did the same exact thing a couple of times in that game too. So it could have gone either way. Held them to penalties, and well, Lexi Gonzalez, the big signing, or just about to sign to Arkansas, the University of Arkansas, for as a goalie, ended up saving and also getting to score a penalty in that shootout to put her team basically through and get a victory onto, well, a district title most likely. So very fun. And in the men's game, a lucky goal from McAllen Memorial, ended up winning 1-0 in a kind of boring game because both teams, not going to lie, not amazing. So that was what.
Anytime we beat Mackay, I take it. And sorry, Dad, I know you're a Mackay alumnus, but go Mighty Mustangs. Yeah. So where can they find that interview that you mentioned?
Tip of Texas Sports Network YouTube page. It's also in my Instagram bio, Jacob Young 99, and you could probably also find it on my Facebook profile. Just search up Jacob Young.
So going back into the chat before we go, it says Cisco says, real quick, finally got to meet Jacob, so that was cool. So did Jorge as well. He says same here. And he says, also, y'all need to stop encouraging Edson to dance. No more solo. No comment. And then Jorge says, "Oh my, that was without drinks." Yeah, imagine if I had a couple of tequilas on me. So yeah. Although to be fair, I will say this: I'm more about the singing thing, not really the dancing thing. And my singing is really not that great, so you can already imagine. Real quick, before we go, we got 4 minutes. So Johnny says, "Yo, heard USL is looking into a women's league." Yes, there was a couple of months ago. There was an article by, I believe it was The Athletic, that did mention that the USL really wants to create a women's team. I'm not sure if they want to combat NWSL, but the USL is looking into creating its own women's league with USL teams, because I know they've got USL League One, you get USL Championship, USL League Two, and then you've got USL Academy tournaments as well. So they really are looking into bringing into that hierarchy women's leagues, and I know that was also mentioned recently with their latest hire of USL front headquarters. So I will post that link, that article, when I find it. I'll post that on our social media. As always, you can follow us on Facebook, Down in the RGV, Twitter @Down in the RGV, or in Spanish @DITV podcast _ES, and Instagram @Down in the RGV. Oh, Cisco, come on. Edson is blushing. Really appreciate all of y'all for tuning in. Next week we should have an episode talking about what happened, or what we hear happened in these next couple of friendlies. So be sure to tune in for that. And will happen next Wednesday at 7 p.m. So be sure to stay tuned about that as well. Jacob, any last words before we go?
Well, just support both teams, no matter if you're RGVFC and Houston Dynamo, because it will only benefit both. And especially, well, both teams will need that going into this season. Can't wait for it. Can't wait for next week's episode as well. And we'll get to see or hear what happens versus Austin Bold, and also versus San Antonio FC when we end up playing them, and SMU and all of that fun stuff, because these games will be very vital to the future of at least this season.
The chat is really going at it right now. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for your support. And my name is Edson, and this is my co-host.
Jacob.
And
Jacob, yeah.
Both of us, also on behalf of Cesar Cortez and SIlva, we are Down in the Valley. Oh, right before we go, thank the local media, The Monitor, Channel 4, for really upping up their game in their Toros coverage as well. Really appreciate the baby steps being taken. Hope it's the first of many to come. Really, really appreciate it. Who, by the way, Channel 4 actually retweeted our Isidro Martinez tweet. So that's excellent news. So we'll see you all next week. Be sure to check out our podcast and, of course, our website, ditvpodcast.com. Thank you. Have a good night, and we'll see each other next week.